Continue with that.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November edition of our regular homebrew meeting. I guess a little bit of a preamble before we get going. We did start a poll this week, and I think we've had about 10 people so far participate. So anybody here who hasn't filled out the poll, please go ahead and do so. And then we'll tally things up, I guess maybe next week sometime. Maybe after our presentations tonight. I'll just quickly go over where it stands right now with the 10 responses anyway, 11 responses. And I guess with that, I think mostly everybody's here now. I guess we'll get started then. Tonight we have two presentations. One, Michael will be doing one on the Qsl Bureau, and then I'll just have another short one on one of our buildathon projects that we had done back in 2004, I think. I think it was our third buildathon project at the time. Anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later on. And I guess with that, does anybody have anything they want to add to the agenda for tonight? Don't everybody jump out at once here. Okay, Michael, are you ready to go?
Yep, I am. Yep. Okay, shall I go then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I can get this thing going here. Where's the share screen? Why don't I see a share screen? That's interesting. I don't see share screen here on the bottom.
It's the third icon from the left.
Oh, right. Got it. Okay. All right. So I guess I want to share a window. Wait a second. This isn't going to work. Share entire screen. Share window. There it is. Okay. All right. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Where is from the beginning? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to bore you with stuff about the Qsl Bureau, the Ontario Qsl Bureau mostly. I'm the Bureau manager, and I also look after the two-letter VE3 calls for the Bureau. And I've been doing this since I've been a volunteer for a long time, since early 2000 or something. Well, before that, late 90s or something. But my experience pales in comparison to Pat Lacey V3DIT, who just retired as a volunteer. He did 4 letters, and he, from the records, looks like he started in 1985. So he's been doing it for a long time. Anyway, so Qsl Cards. Everybody, I presume, knows what Qsl Cards are. Just some pictures here. So there's this organization called the International Amateur Radio Union, IARU, and it's an international confederation of national amateur radio societies, and it's a forum for discussion and whatnot. And today there's 162 national member societies worldwide, and it was started in 1925. And what it does is it represents matters associated with amateur radio to the ITU, International Telecommunications Union. So the IARU has divided the, hang on a second, I'm just going to shut this thing off. Let's turn it, anyway. It's divided the world into several regions, and we're in region 2. And yeah. So they operate as the IARU member societies, such as Canada, the societies operate a bunch of worldwide Qsl bureaus. And Radio Amateurs of Canada, which is the national amateur group for Canada, operates a national incoming Qsl bureau where all the cards from overseas come to and get redistributed, and also an outgoing Qsl bureau, which is located in Ottawa. The incoming bureau is here in Mississauga. So how it works is cards received by the RAC, National Incoming Bureau, for all of Canada. They come in from the various different QSL bureaus worldwide, and they get sorted to the individual province and territory incoming QSL bureaus. So the RAC QSL bureaus, the National Incoming QSL Bureau is Box 83 in Streetsville in Ontario, and it's run by Ed Spingola, VA3TPV, who is also involved with the Ontario Incoming Bureau. I'll get to that. So the National Incoming Bureau is available to all Canadian amateurs. So cards come worldwide. You don't have to be a member of anything to receive cards. They come in and they get redistributed. You don't have to you don't have to belong to RAC to use that organization. That's just the way it works. The RAC Outgoing Bureau, which is located in Nepean in Ottawa, near Ottawa, is available only to RAC members. You have to be a RAC member to use the Outgoing QSL Bureau. And there's no cost associated with that for reasonable numbers of cards sent out. When you get to the large volumes, you have to pay a small fee. And the Outgoing Bureau will notify you if you ask them when your cards get to Ottawa. They'll notify you they got there by email. So this is what the National Incoming Bureau looks like. This is in Ed Spingola's basement, and what he does is he sorts the cards by province and territory, and I suspect that is there. Can you see that? I guess you can see the cursor. I think that's there. The rest of this stuff is individual letter groups in Ontario by and large, but I don't pretend to know exactly what it's all about because he set this up himself.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Just a question here. We're still on the first slide, and I think you mentioned another slide.
You are? You're not looking at a slide called RAC National Incoming QSL Bureau?
I'm still seeing the very first slide that you brought up.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can. How about now? You should be looking at the.
Yep. Yeah, you're not in the presentation mode. You're just in the slide mode thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
So what do I do? Click this? No, that's no good.
I usually click the one that's down the bottom bar towards the right.
Bottom bar towards the right.
Just before you see the
slider.
Enlarger.
Yeah, over a little bit more.
Oh, here, this one.
Yeah.
How's that? You seeing the first slide now?
Seeing the first slide. It hasn't changed, though, to the presentation mode.
What about now? Seeing the second slide?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to unshare and try again.
Yeah.
Something's not right here. I'm unshared. So now where do I share again? I've lost it. I'm just going to minimize this. And go find it.
You want to keep your presentation open, full screen, and then go into.
Yeah. Okay.
And then when you're
so
in.
You're saying open slideshow then.
Yeah. Have it full screen and then go into Jitsi and then go into share screen and then you want to share a window.
Okay, well, there it is. It's on my computer full screen now.
Okay, now go into Jitsi.
Where's Jitsi? Jitsi's here.
Share screen.
Okay, share screen.
Then go into window. And then in window, you should see your PowerPoint presentation. And then click on
screen and window.
Yeah.
Should be right here.
And if your there you go.
Okay, you can see that, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like a normal PowerPoint presentation with the individual slides down the left, right?
Yes.
So now I should be able to share the full screen, and now you should see the first one and now the second one. That work?
Nope.
Okay. Never mind.
It shows like it just, there you go. Now I can see the second one. I don't know why it's not going into your presentation mode, but at least now I can see your second slide.
I'm going to put it back from the beginning here again. So now you should see the first one and the second one and the third one, right? No?
It's not changing.
I'll tell you what,
on your second slide.
let's do it the other way. You're just looking at a normal PowerPoint presentation, right? Now?
I'm looking at the, your editing view. It's not in the actual presentation mode yet.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the second screen, your second
Oh,
slide.
How do I get in? Oh, maybe up here. Is that it there?
No.
Oh, that's ribbon display down the bottom here.
Yeah, one more over. One more
That
there.
one.
That one.
Now you're seeing a bunch of QSL cards?
Yes.
And how about now?
Still,
Another slide?
It's still in the other mode, but at least we can see the slides now.
So you're looking at an IARU slide now.
We're looking at your second slide.
The one with the QSL cards.
Yes.
Oh, something's wrong here. It's just not working. So you're seeing the normal mode now, right? With the ribbon across the top and everything.
Yes.
So now you're seeing the third slide.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do it this way. I don't know what's wrong. I'll do it this way.
Okay.
Okay, so I was talking about the IARU and the regions. There's the 4 regions. We're in region 2 in North and South America. And the Bureau operates, or the IARU operates national bureaus. And RAC is our organization that runs it, like I was saying. And the national incoming QSL Bureau, mailing address is in Streetsville, and it's run by Ed Spingola, VA3TPV. And it's available to anybody who wants to use it in Ontario, in Canada. And Ed distributes the cards to the provincial bureaus and the national outgoing bureaus in Nepean, and it's available only to RAC members. The cost of the bureaus is free. Outgoing bureaus free to RAC members, and other than if you get a lot of cards, like there's a point at which you start paying for QSL cards to be mailed out of the country. So what you do is you send all your cards to Ottawa or Nepean, and you sort them beforehand. I'll talk about that a bit later on. Okay, so this is the incoming bureau. You should be able to see that, right, Peter?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, so this is Ed's sorting stations, and basically he's made up some sorting boxes, and actually we use the sorting boxes, some of us, to do mailing, and they're very handy for sorting the cards. Anyway, that's what that is. So there are provincial QSL bureaus in Canada, but they're independent of RAC. They're completely independent. They're not supported financially or otherwise by RAC. Other than that, the cards come into the National Incoming Bureau and get distributed to the individual provincial ones. You don't have to be a member of RAC to use them. They're open to anybody in Canada to use. And the Ontario Bureau is the VA3/VE3 Incoming QSL Card Bureau. That's what we call it. And it was set up in 2012. And it's a not-for-profit Ontario not-for-profit corporation. Before 2012, Gary Westhouse, VE3NID, who is now Silent Key, ran the QSL Bureau pretty well single-handedly, and he got all the cards in and distributed them to the individual mailing volunteers in Ontario, who then passed them on to the users. But in 2012, Gary decided to retire, and Ed and I decided, in conjunction with the current manager, who was not me, that we would incorporate the Bureau. Reason we did that was to limit liability for individual mailing volunteers, not that it's ever been an issue, and the amounts of money involved are minuscule. But anyway, we decided we would do that anyway. So it's a not-for-profit organization in Ontario. So this is the Bureau management. I'm the manager, for better or for worse. Wayne NWH is the secretary. Bruce Crawford is the treasurer. Ed Spingola is the incoming mail manager. Mario Ewer is the card sorting manager nominally. We have a special projects manager and a special calls and returns. We set this up this way. That's the sort of structure with the directors of the organization, and there's 16 mailing volunteers, 12 all from the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club and 4 elsewhere. So here's the mailing volunteers in Ontario for these 12 of the 16. Some of us have more than one letter group, as you can see. There's 12 in Ontario, 12 are members of the club. Primarily that's because we set it up here, and that's where we got our volunteers from. And others, E is in Etobicoke, and K and X are in Windsor, or Sarnia. Paul Allen does the V's and Z's, and Dale Sackey does the W's. He's down in St. Catharines. So it's sort of spread around a little bit. Why you use the Bureau is to save money, basically. It's a low-cost way to send cards, because you just send them to Ottawa, and to receive them, it's free, except for the cost of postage from the Bureau to you. And the cost of direct mailing is going up right now. If you want to send a card to, I don't know, suppose you want to send a card to Germany, it's going to cost you, I think it's $2.95 airmail to get that card, a single card to Germany. And then after that, if you want to get a card, if you want to get a card back from the guy, then you have to. Sorry about the phone. If you want to get a card back from the Bureau, or just a second. Yeah, can you take it? Sorry about that. Yeah. So if you want to get a card back from, let's say, a guy in Germany, and you want to send it to your card to him, it's going to cost you around $3 postage to send it to him. Plus, if you want it quickly, usually you give the guy $2 or $3 US, because the cost of sending a card back from Germany, for example, is around $3 US. So it's going to cost you $3 US times another 30%, whatever, $4 Canadian, maybe a bit more than that, plus your mailing, your email, your airmail to them. So it's very expensive. So it's much cheaper to use the Bureau, which is why people do it. And there's other ways to get Qsl cards. I'll come back to that in a minute. But anyway, that's why you use the Bureau, basically. So this relates to what I'm talking about now is our Ontario Bureau. We have a website, ve3qcb.ca. So you go there, and there's all kinds of stuff on there, information about how the Bureau works and whatnot. The Bureau is a user pay system, so you as a Bureau user have to provide funds for postage and handling. There's a postage, and there's a small handling fee for each mailing. 30 cents we charge for handling. That covers some of the sort of fixed costs associated with running the Bureau. So if you want to submit funds, you use, there's a tab called it's the Deposit Funds tab. I'll show you this in a minute. So you can submit funds via PayPal or a credit card, or if you want to submit them, you can always mail them into the Bureau's post office box. On the Bureau website, you can check to see if the Bureau has cards for you. Yes or no. Do we have funds? Do you have funds in your account? Yes or no. And do you have labels on file? And so this is the homepage for the Bureau, and each of the tabs have various different things. You can see the third tab over is the Deposit Funds tab. There's another one that shows your mailing volunteers, list of the mailing volunteers. The rest of it, and the other thing that's available for users is the Do You Have Cards function, which I'll show you in a second. The reports and call signs and login is for the Bureau volunteers, the mailing volunteers. So there's a lot of information here about how the Bureau works and whatnot. So this is the Do You Have Cards page. What you do is you put your call sign in the box, and you search for it. And this is a little bit of data that's talking about the call signs that are not part of the letter groups that are not part. All the alphabet is now in the Bureau. Anyway, what you see when you do this, you put your call sign and it tells you the number of grams of cards. That's because we deal with grams rather than numbers of cards. It's easier. Tells you whether or not you have labels and whether or not you have funds. Doesn't tell you how much because for privacy reasons and also administrative reasons. We don't want to get into that. So you'd have to set up some fancy system. But anyway, so you send your cards in, you send your money in rather, and we much prefer that people use PayPal via the website. You can send a check in if you want to, $10, $20. People are still sending $5, which just gets eaten up in no time. So 10, 20 bucks, something like that. You don't put your call sign in. You don't put cash in the mail. You put your call sign in with your check, and we credit the funds to your account. And that way, then the mailing volunteers know. You can also send in labels for mailing, address labels, or ask us to print them, which we much prefer. It's a lot easier. We charge $2 for 30 labels, so it's quite inexpensive, and it doesn't. If you do that, then you don't have to send your labels in, which incurs additional cost for you as a user. So we don't take self-addressed envelopes. Used to be you did. We don't take stamped self-addressed envelopes either, and we don't take stamps. Also, we used to, but we don't anymore. So basically, when you set yourself up, when you put your money in by PayPal, we get your email address because you do it by email, and we prefer to have a phone number as well so we can get in touch with you. And when your funds get getting low enough that we can't send you mail, can't send you cards, the mailing volunteers would let you know by email. That's why we use the email address. So this is what the deposit funds page looks like. There's a drop-down box on the left at the top, mailing funds, and there's I think there's 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever number of drop-downs. You pick the particular amount you want, and you indicate whether or not, yes or no, you want address labels. And if you don't put anything, it'll say no. You give your call sign and you hit the Pay Now button. And what that does is take you to the PayPal page, take you to your PayPal page. And in there, you can indicate if you don't have a PayPal account, you can use a credit card. PayPal allows you to do that. So that's the alternative. So after you deposit the funds, what the mailing manager checks the PayPal account regularly and also the post office box in Streetsville. He records the amounts, and what he does is he sends an email to the mailing volunteer, your particular mailing volunteer. He does it on sort of a batch basis every so often. He sends them out. So if you put money in, he's gonna find out about that. And what the mailing volunteer does is records it in the database. The amount you've sent in, whether or not you've got labels or you sent labels in, and he debits whenever he does a mailing. He debits your account. That should be for the not labels. That's for the cost of the mailing. So basically, he sets everything up, and when he does a mailing to you, he debits your account, and it's automatic. I think I've got a slide for that. So this whole process takes time. So you can't expect. We get people who sometimes who send money in today, and today is Wednesday, and on Friday they're sending emails to say, did you get my money? It takes time to put, because they look on the people look on the do you have funds thing, and it doesn't say, because it takes time to get it into the database, because the volunteers aren't able to do this instantaneously. So it takes a while. So if you don't want cards, you need to tell the Bureau. So we know. And what we do, if you don't want cards, we just dispose of them as they come in. The other thing you should do is put on the qrz.com, in your qrz.com page, you should indicate that you don't want cards. There's a area where you can talk about profile, and you can say, I don't want QSL cards by the Bureau. And you should need to keep your now it's ISED, but you need to keep that address up to date. We use it for mailing as a mailing address, and we also look at QRZ, so it's important to keep your QRZ address up to date as well. And it's a legal requirement to add the IC address, to keep your IC address up to date, rather. So this is this slide shows the typical. This is a typical mailing. This was in July. Everything comes to my place from Ed. Ed does the initial sorting, and he puts the various stuff together. This is the VE3 two-letter calls here on the left at the front. This is the VA3 two-letter calls left on the front, the right here. In the box in the back are the three-letter call signs grouped by call sign. So the E's in one bag, the A's in another, the Y's in another, whatever. And this here is the volume of QSL cards that Ron Vanderkraat's VE3AT gets. It's enormous. Like, and you can see the weights here. The total weight for this shipment was 23 kilograms. 14 were three-letter VE. 14 were three-letter calls, VE3s by the A, B, C, D, and whatnot. 4.5 kilograms were the two-letter VE3s. 2.3 were the VAs, and Ron 2.4. So that gives you an idea of the volume we're dealing with. And this is way down from what it used to be. Well, actually, the volume in a particular distribution would be about this. But we used to get 6 or 7 at least distributions a year. Now we're down to 3, maybe. So things have changed. This is what we used to do before COVID. We used to get a team here at my place to sort the two-letter VE3s. Ed, as he sorts them, gets them coming in, he would put them in the VE3A, all the VE3As, all the 3Bs, and so on into separate parcels. And then what we do is we sort them out by call sign, so that in the end they're all in order. So that helps me to do the mailing. We usually get 3 or 4 people doing this, and it takes a couple hours and we're done. But now with COVID, I do it myself. It's not particularly difficult. This is what one of the two-letter VE3 distributions look like. These have been sorted. They've been set up. Each one of this will be the VE3As, the Bs, and the Cs and whatnot. But they haven't been sorted by individual call sign. So we would sort them out by individual call sign, and then I would go through the mailing process later. So yeah, so what I do when I mail them is when they've all been sorted, basically I enter. Whoops, where'd that go? Sorry. Where'd it go? Yeah, I enter the data into this. This is the call sign tab in the database, and basically you do a search. You find the call sign. You can indicate whether the guy wants cards or not, or whether he doesn't want cards. This shows up. You can see it. Then there's a number of tabs here that there's a notes tab, so you can make notes. You can see what the recent activity is. You can make a deposit by clicking on this, and you can make a shipment by clicking on this. There's the IC address. This is another area to enter data. You can enter an address if it's different from IC. You can put email addresses. And up in the top, the call sign, the cumulative deposits, the current balance, the number of labels, and the card weight that's on file. So this happens you can see this for every call sign. So what I do when I get the cards is I go and I find the guy's call sign, weigh the cards on a scale. All the mailing volunteers have been given scales. Weigh the cards, enter the amount into the database here, and then I do the mailing afterwards. So this is the deposit funds thing. You can put in the dollar amount, the number of labels, the weight of cards, and you can put notes in here, and you click the add deposit, then it gets into the database. So you do that for, what I do is I do that for each of the call signs I've got, and then the next thing I do is I do the mailing. So what you do is you use this make shipment thing page where there's a number of drop down boxes here for the various different weights that are tied to the post office. Like the 92 cents is up to 30 grams, the $1.30 is up to from 31 to 50 and whatnot. So basically just select the numbers, you put the weight of cards down here, and how many labels you've used, and then you click this create mailing thing, and what it does is it updates the database for you. And what you do when you do the mailing, you put the cards in the guy's envelope, and then you go to the post office and mail them. Takes me about 6 hours to do the 2-letter E3s. So a bit about the Outgoing Bureau. You have to be a RAC member, as I said. How you use it is you send your cards to Nepean. You put your RAC membership number on it, somewhere in there, which is on the TCA magazine, and you sort your cards into groups. You sort all the non-US cards by the DXCC country prefix, and then you sort the US cards by call area 0 to 9. And for call area 4, you have to do something a little bit different. And you mail the US cards and the non-US cards to the RAC Outgoing Bureau. Anything for Canada, rather than sending it to the Outgoing Bureau, having them send it back to the incoming one, you send it directly to the incoming bureau. So Ontario or Canadian cards, you just mail them to the National Incoming Bureau, and Ed, the mailing manager, then gets them and passes them on. Oh, just quickly, some options for QSLing. You can send direct, which is expensive, as I said. You have to send a stamped self-addressed envelope. You don't put your call sign on it because it's an invitation to postal theft, because there's money in there. What I do is I put my card inside the return envelope. If I'm putting $3 US or US green stamps in, I put it inside, and then I wrap the thing up in a piece of paper so it's not transparent, and mail it. You can use the bureaus we talked about. There's another thing. A lot of DXpeditions use Club Log or the OQRS system. And Club Log, you can go look at whether you're in the log or not, but once the DXpedition is over, you can use the OQRS system, which means you just send money to the guy who's going to mail the card. You don't have to send a card to him, which is a little bit less expensive. So it costs you a couple of euros for a QSL card or whatever it happens, however many it happens to be. There are other services. One is called Global QSL, and how that works is basically you send them your log in an ADI file and amateur data interchange format, ADI. You send them your log that way, and you pick a QSL card from their selection of cards, and you can actually send them a custom card as well. What they do is they mail the cards in bulk for you, so you actually don't have to mail them yourself. So it costs a bit, but it's another way to do it. So yeah, that's really all I got to say. Any questions? I got to come out of sharing here. Are there any questions? Looks like not. That I got it easy. Or did I?
I've got a couple here, Michael. I've noticed that there's some call signs are not. You can't check to see if you have any cards available. There's about four call signs or 4 call letters that you can't check online.
Oh, that was because Pat Lacey had been doing this for eons, and when we took over the bureau in 2012, he did not want to do that. So we just said, well, fine, we'll just leave it that way. So those 4 letters, originally 5, but those 4 letters were not part of the group. That slides out of date. Pat has just retired, so we've got new mailing volunteers set up. So it's all part of the system. We have all the call signs in the bureau now.
Oh, okay, because I
So
went.
the Ps, for example, your call, Wayne actually is looking after the Ps. So you send them to Wayne, or you send them through the bureau. Wayne gets them.
Okay,
And
I just
decides
checked.
Wayne decides whether they're going to blackball you or not. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's how it works.
It's gonna be. I got my stuff down here. I'll send my money tonight.
In a group, and
But yeah, I checked to see if I had any cards there, and it said 0.
Well, that's because Pat was not part of the group. He was not using the bureau at the database at all. He may well have had cards for you, but he's not using the database.
Okay.
Now that's been changed.
Okay. And what's the typical weight of a card?
3 grams.
Okay.
Between 2 between 2 and 3 grams, and that raises an interesting point. What the most economic use of your postage is for us to wait until there's around 24 grams, because 24 grams plus the weight of the envelope is just barely 30 grams, just under 30. And that way it costs you 92 cents. If I send you a card every time I get one and just send one card to you, it's going to cost you the 92 cents for one card. So that doesn't make any sense. So that's what we try to do.
Okay.
Is maximize the use of people's volunteers, unless they tell us otherwise.
Okay.
And we have pre-addressed envelopes with the cost of as the handling fee that we charge covers the cost of envelopes, or some of it anyway. So we buy envelopes in bulk, pre-addressed envelopes in bulk.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have questions? Comments? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Michael, I had to step out, unfortunately, due to a family meal commitment. But you might have addressed this already, so apologies if so. I'm aware of the all, whatever, I guess, digital, all electronic QSL things. And then there's this, which is the old-fashioned snail mail paper. Is there any kind of in between? I assume somebody has come up with that, where you can still get the fancy designs as more than just a line in a database or a spreadsheet, but you get something that you can then just exchange and print off on your printer if you want to plaster your wall with fancy designs and all that. You know what I mean? Like
I think so. Yeah. Let me just say, I completely forgot to talk about Logbook of the World. Logbook of the World is run by the ARRL in the States, and they also run the DXCC program. And you can upload your log to Logbook of the World, to the ARRL Logbook of the World site. And other people, like if I send a log to upload my log every so often to Logbook of the World, and other people do as well, then you see a confirmation that way electronically, and that confirmation, because it's done by Logbook of the World, run by the ARRL, is recognized by the DXCC program. So you don't have to exchange cards to collect your DXCC country awards if that's what you're interested in doing. That's the only accredited one. There is the EQSL system, which is exactly as you suggest. What you do is you join. Oh yeah, sorry. Before we go on, you have to register with the Logbook of the World, and you have to send them proof that I think you send them a driver's license or something. I forget now. So long ago since but you basically prove who you are. Everybody does that, so they know it's legitimate. The other electronic system is EQSL, and you join that as well. Basically, you upload a card. You design your own card, upload it to EQSL, and then I think it's stored on file. And then when somebody confirms it, they send you. You can get an electronic printable copy of, if I'm using it, my QSL card. So I think that's what you're talking about.
That's kind of what I was after. I'm just wondering if it would be customized with all the details of the contact. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
Would it be customized with the details of the contact?
Oh, sure. Yeah, what you do is you upload your log to the EQSL guys. So if I talk to you, if I upload my QSL with you to eQSL, then you can get a confirmation via eQSL, and it has on it all the details: date, time, band, mode.
So, like,
Yeah,
I'm just curious, like the printable card you have would have all those details on it.
Yeah, that's right. You'd print out my card and download it and print it out, and it would have all those details on it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But the thing with eQSL, it's not recognized by the ARL, so it's useless for DXCC awards. So you just can't use it. So you have to use the other.
Right. You'd have to duplicate your efforts or what have you, I guess. But
that's right. And Logbook of the World is one of the main reasons that the volumes are down. We think it's not only the cost of cards; it's because Logbook of the World is there, and most of the digital guys, FT8 for example, almost everybody uses LOTW.
Yeah, it's too bad they don't have an option for if you want to design your own custom card to do that, if you want that old-fashioned piece of paper on the wall, so to speak, right? So
Logbook of the World doesn't do it that way. They're just a storehouse, a clearinghouse basically. So that you go on the Logbook of the World website and you can see your confirmed contacts listed there. And
or if they allowed a third-party service to, access to the database, to do that, that would be the ideal. If ARL doesn't want to do it themselves, and at least allow somebody to parse the database and have eQSL, suck the information from. Maybe there's some history there. Who knows? But anyway,
I don't know. I don't know whether that was ever talked about. It just doesn't exist.
Just two separate systems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On that point there, I don't know whether it was just a wishful conversation I was having several weeks ago on that very thing, or there was some chat somewhere about Logbook of the World getting in cahoots with, I guess whatever's over on the European side of things. But I don't know if anything ever came with it, or it was just rumors.
I don't know. I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, the German QSL Bureau, there's a YouTube video around. The German QSL Bureau uses, they have some automated printing process where they print cards for users en masse, and sometimes you see those going through the system. Nice, fancy cards, beautiful cards, so all printed out on them. And also, I'm starting to see, you get a QSL card, and on it there's a QR code. And you look at the QR code, and all the guy's name and address is there, plus all the QSO details on the QR code. You can read it with a barcode reader. Anyway.
Oh. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michael. It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anybody wants to use the Bureau, let me know. Send me an email or something. I can provide information or whatever.
Okay, great. And I promise I'll get my money in within 24 hours.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. I guess moving on here. I'll open up my window here. I wonder if mine will work or not work. Michael, we'll see in a minute. Eh? Oh, it seems to work. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. A little while back, I was thinking about what presentations we could do, and I was thumbing through some old magazines looking for. Oh, I didn't know what I was looking for. I was just going through a whole bunch of old magazines, and I started to look at the magazine that was put out by the American QRP Club. I think George Heron was the publisher, or he was the main thrust behind it. Anyway, he going through some CDs. They originally were paper, then they went to CDs, and then they folded. Anyway, I came across an article that was written by one of our own, Frank V3FAO, and it was on our PARC antenna tuner that we had done back in 2004. So I thought it might be a bit of an interesting presentation just to show what we did all those years ago and how that thing was constructed. Frank, did you want to make a comment or two before we got going, or did you want to just interject as we proceed?
Well, all of the above. Just to give a little background in the history here, this was our third buildathon. The first one was the NorCal Keyer, and I just bought a bunch of kits from NorCal, and we put on the show. At that time, Simon Clayton, VE3 SFC, was very involved in so much as he provided all the soldering irons and everything, because back in 2004, not every ham had a soldering station or anything like that. So he brought in a whole bunch of soldering stations, and he also brought in video on how to solder. So these were kind of prerequisites that we ran just ahead of the course, the head of the buildathon, if you weren't familiar with soldering. And then the next one was the SW40 Plus, and it came as a kit complete with the cabinet for it, the case for it. So I was looking around for something else to finish the station off. We had the keyer, we had the transceiver, and I came across a couple of articles for antenna tuners, and wrote to the authors and got permission to use their articles and the information, although there was no kit provided. So this is the first time we made up a kit from scratch, and I'll comment about some of the things that we had to go through to get this going. So back to you there, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Frank. I'd forgotten about Simon supplying all the all the soldering stations. Yeah, that was good. Okay, this project was, well, as you gather now, was developed for the Peel Club by Frank, and it was based on designs by Joe Everhart, who's now at Silent Key, and Tony K1 and KP, Michael W3TS, and Yerlich KA2WEU. When I was going through the magazine, well, there's the picture of the antenna tuner there on your right, and you can see the SWR was indicated by the LEDs at the top there, and then below that you can see the switches, 7 switches for the inductors, and then there's another switch there at the upper middle for the added capacitance if you needed it, and of course the vari-cap on the left. The little cutout there on the left, there upper left, was the headline of the project in the article, and I include that because I like the very last sentence there. It says a terrific homebrew club project that everyone can use. I like that word terrific, and it's underlined because it really truly is. 9 were built, or no, 10 I guess if you count Frank's, and I guess maybe even 11, because Frank was telling me the other day that Ken had built a high-powered version of this QRP version, and then on the bottom left there you can see by the time I joined the AM QRP for their magazine, they had stopped publishing the paper version, and they did, I think, 7, 6 or something like that, I can't remember now, of the discs of the CDs before that went to the wayside. It was too bad. That was I really liked that magazine. It had a ton, every page had circuits in it. It was great. Okay, this project is actually 2 projects, and Frank's twist on it was to combine it all under one roof. And it was published, the antenna tuner part and the SWR bridge indicator is the second part of the project. The antenna tuner portion was published in QST in December of '74, and then was later modified and published in March of April '92, issue of '72, and then it was done in June of '92 for QRP Quarterly, and again in '92 of Sprat. So it's getting published everywhere. The SWR bridge and indicator was published in the June of '95 in QST, and then Joe Everhart, N2CX, further adapted it to QRP operation. And then the New Jersey QRP Club later published it, as we said, in the Homebrewer magazine, or journal, as they call it, in December 2001. The two circuits, as I mentioned earlier, was combined by Frank and fitted into a case that matches the Small Wonder Woods Lab SW40. And Janet, VE3 BVR, Frank's daughter, developed the graphics that were used in the front and rear panels. And here's just a little shot of, well, mine. You can kind of see how the case and everything is basically the same size as the SW40. And just kind of looking at the picture here, I guess you can see the marks on the transceiver there. I guess maybe I should figure out how to put a frequency counter in there, maybe. Okay, there's Frank's at the top and the rest of ours at the bottom. The pyramid of tuners. Must have been a big job, Frank. You didn't ask me to give you a hand.
At this point in time was the first time that I ever really got involved in metal work, and I bought myself a brake just to build these cabinets. Since then, that form factor has shown up in many different homebrew projects and many buildathons later on, but all based on the same original design.
Actually, I'm just looking in the shack here right now, Frank. You're right. That form factor is in the CW filter we did, the digital interface, the Q4 project comes to mind. That's what I can just see just looking around the shack here. So it worked well, that dimension.
I really milked it.
So here's this was our introduction to Manhattan style construction. One of these days I'm going to convince Frank to break out some of his projects and show him some, like this. You know, Frank, you got some really terrific projects with Manhattan style, and you can just see the basis of the progress of how the project went, including a Manhattan style dip breakout board. And the wiring there, if you ever come across the twisted pair of wires from Bell, save it, because it makes for good hookup wire, although it doesn't take the heat very well. And then things really got interesting here. And as a little sidebar, I can never let toroids go. My toroid therapy started to develop around this time. I just didn't know it until the Q4 project anyway. But there's the cores that we wound for the project. Actually, it was a good introduction to winding toroids because they weren't too complicated. I guess the transformer there on the left there was a little bit different of an animal, but it was good. It was far more interesting mounting these in the space we had available for it, though. There's some more pictures of the case, how it is, and you can see on the far right and bottom left there the front and back graphics that Janet did. And then in the bottom middle, just how we mounted that transformer on top of the switch.
That was a bit of a problem in design to where to put that transformer. And I took the project up to our trailer one summer and was playing around with it. And then all of a sudden I said, hey, maybe I could slip it in there between the two switches. And lo and behold, it actually fit perfectly in there. So that's how it got tucked in that little corner.
Well, at least that worked out for you, Frank, because whenever I do these kinds of things, the hole is always in the wrong place. So you managed to drill all these holes first and then figure out how to fit it all in after the fact. That's pretty good. Hope you bought a lottery ticket that day. Okay, so there's two shots of how we mounted the cores, and like I said, right on you can see easily there how the larger cores are all mounted right on the back of the switches, and the two air cores are tucked underneath. Oh, let me go back up again. Yeah, and I like that ribbon cable we used in here. That really neatened up things here. I'll spread out here for the LED indicators. There's the schematics of the two individual projects, and I guess Oh, Frank, did you want to make comment on that one schematic there on the left at the top there?
Yeah, that's an interesting little piece of circuitry. On the left schematic at the top right-hand side of the schematic where the battery is connected, it goes through two transistors there, and that's an automatic switch for the battery to switch in. So a lot of people, including myself, have forgotten that there's actually a battery in this thing, and it stops working and whatnot, and you open it up to see what's wrong. And finally, after several years, the battery finally decided it had had enough. Well, the benefit or the reason for the longevity of the battery was this little circuit here. And the lower FET senses any RF that comes in, and that switches on, and it switches on the Q2 transistor, which provides the battery power. So the battery is always connected, but it's a switch that only turns the battery on when you use it, when you put RF in it. And I've taken that particular part of the circuit and used it in several of my homebrew projects to save batteries, which if I forget to turn off, the battery is not very good the next time I go to use it.
Yeah, I'll make mention here, Frank, too, that your little circuit idea there was you got written up, didn't you, in the idea exchange for QRP Quarterly?
Yeah, you can find that in the Idea Exchange publication, the book they put that circuit and how to use it for the WM watt meter.
Yeah,
The watt meter, I always left it on, and it wouldn't run the next time I went to use it. So in battery mode. So anyway, I put that circuit into it, and it works like a champ.
Yeah, so you can see Frank's name in print there on page 118 for those of you who have the best of the idea exchange from QRP Quarterly. Okay, and there's anything fancy or talk about on the other schematic at all, Frank? Or is that just pretty basic, I guess?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And
Peter, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah, Frank, sorry, I missed your explanation of that battery circuit there. Could you, sorry to ask you to repeat it again. Could you repeat how that works?
yeah, the battery is always connected, but it isn't being used because Q2 is turned off. When any type of RF signal is detected by the FET, the second transistor in that circuit, that the FET turns on, which automatically turns on Q2 and connects the battery to the circuit. So as long as there is no RF feeding into the antenna tuner, the battery is not used at all. And as soon as you get the initial RF going through, then it turns on the whole circuit and your LEDs light up, and you can tune the antenna.
Frank, I have a question. It's Michael.
Yeah.
I can see at the top, I can see the in, top left, the in, and then there's a voltage divider here with a diode. The RF presumably turns on that diode, and this must turn on the gate of the transistor. Is that how it works?
Yep.
Okay. So the diode just rectifies the RF, creates a DC voltage.
Yeah, it's got a dual purpose because it's used in the tuner itself.
I had another question, if I may. One of the earlier slides showed the little pads made out of copper. They're the precursor, if you like, to these things on the left here. They're the precursor to the Me pads, are they? Or they already got insulation on the bottom of them?
Yeah, that was years before the Me pads came about, and it's just that all was made up of just a piece of copper that I just cut all those together enough to make the the whole kit. And the mounting for the IC, that I had to basically design a tool that would make those fine slots equal. And what it is a screw at one end which pushes a piece of copper across a what would you call it? A board that, like the hacksaw goes through, like a miter board, but only one cut. And if you turn the handle attached to the worm gear, which is really just a threaded rod, turn it 1/2 a turn, then you get the exact spacing for the gaps between the pins. So I would put it in, cut the end off, turn 1/2 a turn, slice part way through, turn 1/2 a turn, sliced way through, and that until I had the whole thing done. Then take it out and just draw the hacksaw across the center to separate the two. So so I built one of those adapters for every kit and included with it.
Mm-hmm.
Super glue played a big role in this operation there, because all those little pads were glued down. And I found out in the early days that they didn't stick very well unless you use some steel wool, coarse steel wool, on the board itself, and you can see the remnants of the steel wool marking to the right there on the board that's completed.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any other questions, just speak up, because when I'm in presentation mode here, I can't see the hand being raised.
Oh, thanks, Frank.
Okay.
Okay.
One comment I'll make here at this time, out of the 10 that were built, I know of one that's used regularly. That's Frank's. Frank loves this tuner so much that, well, I don't know, Frank, is it because you like this tuner so much, or is it because you didn't want to fork out the money for an AT when you got the KX2?
No, well, I've had 2 or 3 automatic tuners, and I still go back to this one because I can tune down finer than the automatic tuner. They usually kick out before you get down to a 1-to-1. So I've had them and got rid of them, and I'm back to using this particular tuner. The only downside of the tuner is that it is QRP. But since I only operate QRP, then it's just perfect for me.
Well, if anybody's interested, you can always see Ken, because Ken went with the more high-powered one. I guess, I don't know, did he do a 100-watt version, Frank?
Oh, no, it wasn't anything like that. It was, I don't know, 20, 30 watts, something.
Oh.
You'll have to ask him what the limit was.
Ah, okay.
So basically, the inductors are just switched in and out when you're selecting the.
Yeah, here they are over
Right.
here, where my mouse is circling around.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here is the LEDs
Yeah.
on the other side here for the
Yep.
SDR indication.
I find I only have to use the added capacitor there for very low bands, like 80 meters, 160.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of that sort of thing, I had an email from Kevin the other day, and we're talking about test equipment specs and that kind of thing. And it came up, okay, what kind of really are the specs of the PARC tuner? And I don't know. Anyway, the curiosity got to me, and I had to check it all out that afternoon, because I wanted to see if I could come up with some answers for this meeting. And of course, I didn't have time to double check my work. But what I did was I took the PARC SNA, and I now it's limited to, at least if I recall, and Dave, if you remember, maybe you can speak up. I know that that's a long time ago, this project, but I think I recall there was a setting in the initiation, any files, that you could specify the maximum SWR that would print out. And I kind of remember putting 5 in mine. So it maxed out at 5 to 1. And I purposely was looking for how high of an SWR will this tuner tune in. So I went to the return loss function on the SNA, and I got the answer from that. And then I just went on to a chart that converted a return loss into an SWR. And that number came in at 17 to 1. Now, don't hold me to it because I haven't double checked a couple of different ways to make sure that that was an accurate number, but it certainly is an indication that it can really tune a pretty wild SWR. And to your point, Frank, about the capacitance, I think I just my test setup is still on the bench there. It looks like I had to switch in 330 picofarads into that circuit to tune that one down, and it tuned it down right down to flat 1-to-1. So it seems to do pretty good.
Good. I also pulled up my file for this project, and in it there was a note where Simon had run it with his test equipment to see what the insertion loss was, and it averaged out at about 0.5 dB was the insertion loss.
Well, that's good. We built good stuff. You designed good stuff, Frank. Okay, so here was the group that built that day, and I'll be honest, I had to think for a little bit on a couple of names, but I managed to pull them out. And on the left is Paul. Haven't seen him in decades, let alone years. Brian Weaver next to him, right there. He's now out in PEI, and there's yours truly. Rod Lord. So there's Simon. Boy, you had dark hair back then.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Peter, like everyone's got a lot more hair.
That's a long time ago.
I still have my bald spot. There's Peter Taylor, James McMurray, and another one I haven't talked to in a long time. There's Frank's daughter, Janet, and here is Helena. I haven't talked to her in a long time. And that was the group that built the PARC antenna tuner. And that's all I have for that. Grand. Okay, well, thank you for that terrific design, Frank.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, I don't use mine as often as Frank's. I probably use mine maybe 4 times a year or so, 3 times a year. A couple times when I get out in the field, and I'll bring my SW40 out with it as well, and have a go at it. Sometimes it's down on Lake Ontario, and I think one year I went and worked with the Canada Day contest several years ago, and a couple times I've had it on the bench when we've had various circuits. I was trying out and wanted to have a good match to the antenna for some reason. But since I put an AT in my KX3 and the KXBA 100, the call for it is not quite as high as it once was. Okay, any other comments, questions, inquiries?
Mine is still on my operating table as we speak, and it was able to tune my temporary antenna that goes around the ceiling of this room. So I was thankful for its capabilities when I moved into this location with restricted antenna.
You know, one thing it might be, Frank, if you could figure out what the SWR is on your indoor antenna there on 80, it might be a good idea to see what that one is. Because what I did with the frequencies to make sure I was up at the high ones, I think I checked it at 2 frequencies. One was around, I think, like 6.8 megahertz, and then I chose another one around 4.5 megahertz, only because that's where, when I did the sweep, I had a very high SWR. So I chose those spots to tune them in, tune it in, which it did.
Okay, I'll check that out, let you know.
That'd be an interesting number. Okay, on the poll update, I can let you know the what's coming in at the top, what's top ranking at the moment. At the top of the list, leading off the list, is test equipment topics, followed by Arduino microcontroller projects, followed by Arduino programming topics. Next to that was LT Spice, and these two are the same. LT Spice, in-depth look at circuits for transceivers, that was in there. Following that was how to use components, antenna modeling. Oh, sorry, in demos, demonstrations were a little bit higher than those ones. Basic circuits, KiCad, review of the SNA, the PARC SNA and SIGGEN projects came in next. And then following that was playing homebrew videos that were produced by other people and topics loosely related to homebrew. And then some other suggestions that I was emailed were a segment on tips and tricks, maybe some fabrication and hardware topics, and a request for vacuum tube projects. So I think we'll keep the poll open for another week anyway, just see if we can get a few more people to fill it out, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's an idea of what we're doing. I think all the topics are on there. Look like that people would like to see them for sure. Anybody have any comments on the list as I read or not read, or any additions to the topics to add to this? Well, silence isn't golden, you know. Oh, somebody's got a question there. Okay. Oh, wait. What do you mean it's too neat, Dave? All right.
It is. Frank does such good work. It's too nice. He puts us all to shame.
Every project I start, I think of Frank and I try to be as neat as that. And
My projects, I look at it and I say, Frank would just spin like a Tasmanian devil if he saw this.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have the knack there to do that quite that neat. That's for sure. Like I say, Frank, dig out some of those trophies of yours and give us a little demonstration. Take some pictures and do a little slideshow for us one night. It'd be really interesting.
Oh, the ones that I built that haven't been buildathons.
Yeah, like what was it that? What was the 2N222 one? 22 N22s or something like that.
Yep. 22 2N2222s, and it was a 40-meter transceiver.
Yeah. When was the last time you powered that one up?
Pardon?
When was the last time you powered that one up?
Oh, before I moved, it's still packed.
That was a CW rig?
Yes, it was, but it was all built Manhattan style.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show us that project, one of the mixers or something, Frank, because that was a really good looking rig. Although I have to say, the patience to do that's a lot of little copper pads you got to cut out and glue down.
Yeah, it takes a while to cut those little pads. Me pads work great now.
Well, another thing I started to do halfway between, I started on the LBS project. I etched the me pads into the board.
Oh.
So I thought, well, I'm not even sure if I was aware of me pads at that time or not. I can't remember. But I thought, well, I know it'd be a good idea. Let's etch these pads into the board instead of cutting out the copper and gluing them down. So I did that. And then after I thought, well, why do that? Why not just actually etch the circuit? So my LBS project had a combination of Manhattan, etched circuit boards.
What I like is the approach that the New Zealand guy does. ZL2 CTM, he takes a board that basically has got rows of little breadboard with rows of copper with holes, and he basically uses a drill to break them up where he wants to, and that for me is easier than using knee pads.
Yeah. I see Eric had a question there of, was the SW40 transmitter a homebrew project? It was a homebrew it was a buildathon project, but it was a kit. It wasn't something that Frank engineered at the time. I don't think they're available any longer, though. I don't think anybody took up the cause with. I think Wonder Labs is gone now, isn't it, Frank?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody picked up the cause on his stuff or not. But you know, speaking of the SW40, there was an awful lot written up on that one, and it's actually a really good project to learn about the radio and all the circuits, because there was a lot of documentation that came with that available that explained what every resistor and capacitor was all about and what it was doing.
There was an entire magazine put out dedicated to that by the California QRP group.
Yeah. I burned out the final on the SW40 when I was doing some characterization for which project was it? Was I doing something with I was doing something with the 8307. I took an interest in the 8307 chip, so I was measuring different power levels and all these kinds of things. So I wasn't paying attention to what I didn't have a signal generator like that, so I used the SW40 to try different power levels and see how the 8307 was responding. So I really wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I wasn't even looking at it. I just had my hand on the screwdriver adjusting the SW40, and I'm playing around with it, and going like that, and all of a sudden I could smell smoke. And I burnt the final out of that one. So it will do more than 3 or 4 watts, but not for very long.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any comments, questions, queries, requests? Wow, quiet night tonight. Well, somebody's got some nice bells going.
Comments, questions of a general nature or regarding the...
Whatever you want.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, what you just mentioned actually touched a nerve, but in a good way. That would be really cool, is to have the simplest, be it a transmitter, receiver, probably individually, and have somebody who knows their stuff reasonably go over what each individual component does, right? I kind of get how a lot of these circuits are put together, right? A lot of it, I don't think too many people here, at least, well, maybe I'm not, I should speak for myself, but, start with a blank piece of paper and just start, putting components on and building up, right? A lot of it is glomming together circuits that already exist, right? So it'd be nice to see, why was this, particular op-amp, hooked up the way it was? What is the purpose of the, those capacitors and resistors that, obviously you can sit there and take them out and see what happens when you do so, and trial and error. But it would be nice to, so I guess that's along the lines of the poll you were soliciting for.
Yeah, that very subject places in the top 5. I think in the top 4 actually for that very subject. The SW40, I guess, would be well, you wouldn't have to look very far because it's so well documented that you could probably just duplicate whatever is said in there and then you would have your answer. But I'm not sure that's what.
I don't know what's simpler, that or a tuna tin. They're probably of the same complexity, I guess. Whatever.
It's really going to be food for thought. I guess we can get together and have a chat about how we can approach all these different subjects, or even better yet, who wants to approach these some of these subjects. These volunteers and somebody's wanting to learn something. I suppose you could take a particular transceiver and break it down to a multitude of circuits, and then maybe like we did for the for the LBS project, we had half a dozen people, I can't remember now, who took a circuit and then presented on that particular circuit. Maybe we can do something similar to that of a transceiver of some type. Anyway, something we can talk about. Report on that one.
It would also be interesting or fun to have a hands-on, where everybody was actually at their bench, perhaps, and then you could, sit there and probe the circuit as well, and say, hey, put your probes here and here, see what you see on the meter, the scope, or whatever.
Well, that would mean everybody would have to have the same rig sitting on their bench.
Yeah, of course.
So how many here have an SW40?
Right.
Maybe 2 or 3 of us.
But maybe just the simple circuits.
I suppose one could go out and buy these $8 pixies off of eBay, and we could all mess around with that.
Yeah. Or, put out the circuit in advance, and then everybody puts it together on their bench, and then you have something, right? So, anyway.
Anybody else have comments on that particular subject, or any of the other ones?
Yeah, actually, it's a good comment Eric made, even though he's an American licensed ham.
And even though he's your best buddy.
Yeah. No, but if you look at, remember Chats with the Designers? They did something similar. They took one of their radios and they had a segment and they break down parts of the radio and they just talk about it. They go into really deep detail about why they chose the parts, how it works.
I think they did that on the SW30. I think it was the SW30, wasn't that?
Or something, yeah. They did that.
Which is the same as the SW40, only a different band, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was one of the last set of chats they actually did.
Well, maybe that's the rig to talk about. Although, like I say, there's only, how many have an SW40 or an SW30 sitting in their shacks? Like I said,
no, but just saying, like, it's same concept.
Yeah,
something and just break it down, right?
I mean, it could also be an opportunity instead of actually having the physical thing on the bench. You could always do some circuits in LT Spice to talk about at the same time, or go out and buy a whole slew of those, like I say, those $8 pixies and talk about that.
I like the idea of doing it by LT Spice, because then you can experiment with it and helps to explain it better.
Yeah,
that's actually a great idea. That circumvents the hands or whatever.
It'd be a lot easier to put a pixie into LT Spice than it would be the SW40. That's for sure.
Or maybe do something generic in LT Spice for the same purpose of explanation.
Well, I think it is a good idea using Spice for in that, because it saves you from having to go to doing a circuit right on your bench as well. You can still have a good discussion and a learning experience with that.
Or just make the option, right? If you want to build it with your fingers. If not, then send the LT Spice file around, right?
Well, we've been advocating. Dave has certainly been advocating for years. I think, hey, Dave, how long have you been doing your circuits in Spice first before you ever got near the bench or the soldering iron?
Every circuit I do.
Yeah. And the more and more I've been doing these, and I do have another one almost ready to go for another one of the LT Spice in the real world. And I'm just amazed actually how close and how the Spice is coming to my real world measurements.
Speaking of LT Spice, I'm going to take the conversation off topic, if you don't mind.
No.
Okay. I see Kelly on, and I see there's a couple other electronic techs and engineers on. I got a question about a buck converter and a buck boost converter, because I've been playing around in LT Spice trying to model it, and the thing I can't figure out is the frequency, because I've seen the equations and I've seen how to design it based on duty cycle and ripple and all this stuff, right? But how do you know what frequency to choose?
I can answer that, Dave, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Buck Rod. Right?
Eric, you want to answer that question?
I'm just joking.
No, I know. Yeah,
Please.
Yeah, he's going to say something about taking a chicken.
Actually, I didn't quite understand the question. You wanted to find the frequency to use in the buck converter?
Yeah, because I've been modeling it, and I've found that, and I think it's dependent on the size of the inductor you use. But what I'm seeing is that it seems to work really better when you use a low frequency, like down like 20 kilohertz, 50 kilohertz, as opposed to going out higher in frequency. And I'm not getting from what the equations say you should get to what I model in LT Spice, and I get, it's pretty significant difference.
Well, the buck converter anyway, the frequency is almost irrelevant. You turn the pass device on, and the inductor current starts to increase linearly. And you have a fixed on time that just before the inductor saturates, you turn the switch device off. And then the magnetic field from the inductor collapses and provides current to the load until all of the magnetic field has drained away. That's going to depend on your load current. So the frequency of a buck converter is going to vary with your load.
Okay, yeah, I can understand. I see what you're saying, because I've even tried taking an inductor, hitting it with a pulse function to see how long it takes for it to charge up. And I had no luck doing that in LT Spice. I think you're right. You have to put some kind of a load on it to actually get the current to flow through it, so you can see the current go up.
Yeah, a buck converter will not function without a load. The output simply goes right up to input voltage if you try it. If you look for a TI application note,
Yeah, I saw that.
TL 497.
Yeah, I got that. And those are the equations I'm using, and
you notice frequency doesn't appear in there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. It's just all about duty cycle. But what I found, Kelly, is that if I model it in LT Spice, I don't get anywhere near what they get. And I suspect it's because of losses in parts, because those equations don't account for real world losses in MOSFETs and things like that. Is that correct?
I didn't hear you cut out for part of that.
Okay, sorry. I said, okay, yeah, I used those equations and I generated a model. I created a model, okay, and I ran it in LT Spice, and I didn't get anywhere near what the model predicted, and I suspect it's because of the losses in the components.
Yes. Major sources for losses are going to be switching losses. When you turn your MOSFET on and off, it briefly goes through the linear region. So how fast you switch it on and off is going to matter. And also I squared R losses in the inductor and voltage drops in the diodes.
Yeah, because I figured that's probably why I'm not getting exactly what's predicted there, is because I don't think the models, if you look at that TI application note, it doesn't account for those losses. So I guess I'm not gonna get anything close to what that application predicts. I can get it to work. It works. I get an output. I get a large output current for the buck converter and a lower voltage and a higher current output. And for the buck boost, I get a higher voltage, lower current output. So it makes sense, right? It's working. And if I change the duty cycle, I get a different voltage coming out.
Why not change your model to suit real world component values?
Yeah, that's where, Peter, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where you need you need to get right into the math, right? To figure it out. But I'm just throwing stuff at a dartboard, right?
Mhm.
I spent days going through math on a simple op-amp circuit.
Yeah.
Days. Anyway, it became an
Yeah,
obsession.
and to
Smartened up. Speaking of spice and models, has anybody ever taken S numbers and converted them into a model? Gonna have to tackle it one day. But I know on the LT Spice Groups IO, they have a, what's his name? Engelbart or whatever his name was, Engelhart, who wrote LT Spice. He had an exe file that's up there to help with the conversion of S numbers to models, but I've never done anything more about it other than just reading on it, and wondered if anybody here had done anything like that.
Do you mean scattering parameters?
Yeah. Like for example, you go to mini circuit. You can go to mini circuit. Sorry.
Like you mean like S12 and S23 and stuff like that, right?
Yes, because
how could you model that? That's a measurement.
Well,
it's like a reflection coefficient or a transmission coefficient or a return loss. That's a measurement. You can't really model that.
Well, you can get these S values off of mini circuits, for example, and there's supposed to be a way to use those into making a model for use in LT Spice.
Oh, you mean creating taking your model and making sure that model reflects that S parameter. So you're not modeling the S parameter. You're just taking it and programming it into your model.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know the full thing behind it. I just know there's a possibly way of doing it where you can make it, if you don't have a model, an LT Spice model for a component, but if you have those numbers, you can develop one. Obviously, a little more reading.
Well, I see what you're saying. So that if you don't know what the inner workings of like a MAR6
exactly
is, you've got the S parameters. How do you create a model that's going to do those parameters, right?
Basically.
But I think there's more stuff like it's not just all about return loss and reflection. You need gain. You need power consumption. There's a whole bunch of other things which S parameters is not going to give you. Like there is no S parameter for gain for an amplifier.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, I don't know too much about it other than just some simple readings on it. And like I say, on the LT Spice group, there is an exe file in there to help with the conversion of those values. So for use in a model. But hence the question, has anybody ever done it? Okay.
Not I, said the chicken.
So, okay. Any other comments, questions? These topics or any other topic for that matter at this stage of the game? Okay. Well, hearing none, I guess that brings us to a close for tonight. Thank you all for joining in. Our next meeting up will be December 1st. For our AF mixer, and looks like it's me that's conducting that one as well. So if you have anything you want to put on the agenda for that, give me an email. Any little short presentations or topics of interest or something like that you would like to see us talk about, that would be good. Let me know. And I guess with that, we'll say goodnight all, and thank you for joining us. 7-3.
73 tall.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you. Good night. Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you, Michael.
See you
Good
later.
night.
Okay, good night. Good seeing you, Kelly.
Yeah, it's good seeing you again, Kelly.
Yeah, nice to finally make it to once. Problem is, I get home from work and I fall asleep.
Yeah, that's like me, man. Like even I find it's hard to get to these meetings on time. By the time I finish work, my wife finishes work, it's very difficult.
Well, I started to think, especially when I was doing the poll, I started thinking, okay, we have all these guys that come out to the meetings in person. How come some of those guys who go to all the meetings in person, we've hardly ever seen on the Jitsi sessions,
different job back then.
I don't know. Well, I thought you were supposed to be retiring anyway.
Yeah, different job, man.
Between you and Kevin talking about retirement and wishes and all that kind of stuff, yak.
December 31st, man.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Which year?
This year.
Adam,
Really?
you know what? You're supposed to retire the same day that Eric gets a VE3 call.
No, done.
Full, that's it.
I
You're
already
fully-
gave notice. I'm doing my succession planning. Who's going to take over for me?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
January the 1st, he becomes my greeter at the pharmacy. I got the apron already sized for him, and he's going to be handing out baskets and flyers. And can I get a cart for you, ma'am?
Hey, he'll be washing their hands with the Purell.
Bonehead, I got the third vaccine Tuesday.
How come you got it?
My arm didn't fall off.
How come you got it? You didn't have that.
Because he jumped the queue.
How did you jump the queue? You didn't take AstraZeneca.
Because I'm a healthcare worker. I'm classified as a healthcare worker. I am.
Bullshit.
You can take out a liver with a spoon.
That's right. With a soldering iron.
Why is Dave recording this meeting?
Yeah, maybe I should stop this now.
It's funny. It's under Dave's icon. Anyway,
Is it?
yeah.